Good morning and welcome to Essential Ingredients. I'm Justine, I'm your host. I'm excited today to share with you a very special episode. What makes this special is not only did we talk to the co-founders, we were in person and behind the scenes. You're not going to want to miss this, so stay tuned. Hi guys, thanks so much for joining me today.
We're just so happy to be here. Thank you.
And thank you as well.
Yeah, so for those folks that are tuning in today and can watch, we're here at EO with Brad and Susan. I'm going to learn all about essential oils because I'm guessing that that's what E&O stands for.
It does.
I'm clever.
You're going far.
So, you guys have been around for 30 years. That's a long time.
I know, high five.
Well done, well done. So how did you guys get together to start this company together?
Yeah, well, let's see. I think Brad and I met in 1989, I think. Is that where I have that note from you?
So Susan, I was manufacturing clothes at the time, and Susan came into my warehouse in June of 1988. 1988,
Jeez.
and I wrote her a thank you letter.
People don't do that anymore.
And then she kept it, and then, we've had that. So Susan, it's June
Okay, thank you.
1988.
And he kept it.
1988, and I was, right, so we were shopping for my boyfriend at the time was going on a scavenger hunt around the world, and he worked at a Spree. And Maniac, Brad's company, offered to wardrobe him for this scavenger hunt adventure, and that's how we met.
And what did you go in there to do?
Well, I was,
The stylist.
I was the stylist.
You were the stylist,
Yes.
okay. And so how do we go from stylist and fashion to essential oils?
Well, I've been a product person forever. I was a clothing designer in my past life, and then I was sort of looking for a change. I was in London and found this little shop, Apothecary, and walked in the door, and the smell was so honest and unusual, and I had like a flashback to my grandma's garden and lilacs and fireflies and tomatoes, but it was actually lavender that I smelled, and I was so interested and curious and intrigued about essential oils. That just sort of took me right in. And then I was like, I knew what I wanted to study and learn more about. And then the other part of it was Brad's and my offices were in the same building, and we were friends for years, and then we dated for a while, and then we got married, and then we got divorced. Is sort of a trajectory, and now we're family and business partners for all this time, right? But I think essentially we've always had the same drive, ambition, values, and wanted to create a company that we wanted to work for.
That's amazing. And the whole trajectory is just amazing. From friends to family to the whole thing, and still working together. Because working with family can be hard. I worked with my mom. That was a challenge.
Well, fortunately,
Well, it looks like it's worked out really well 30 years later.
Yeah.
So you went into this apothecary and you were inspired to create something along these lines.
Yes, and so started studying aromatherapy and took a crash course in cosmetic chemistry. Brad was winding down his clothing company, but the thing that Brad really brought to the party was he was already manufacturing products.
We believed in the same thing, and how we got there was a little different.
Okay, so you shared an ethos.
We shared the ethos still to today, and it really does carry us through those tough times and is the bond. And so we both had a vision of how we wanted to engage in the workspace, but also in our lives, and we just had this deep resonance. And it was apparent to me on that first meeting, and then we just became great pals and friends, and then it developed like a lot of relationships do. And so in the business space, in the old days, families worked together. The farm, that's such a great example. And so it's kind of the model that we wanted to create for ourselves, knowingly or maybe even unknowingly. And so we wanted to create a company that we wanted to work for, understanding what the constraints in business are. Like, you got to be profitable, and values and mission and passion only go so far, as you got to have that cash flow.
It's useful.
No margin, no margin, no mission, as we've said.
I like that.
Yeah.
And so in this arena of wanting to work for a company that really resonated with us, is organic or natural, or the triple bottom line, or the golden rule of treating people how you want to be treated. And that ethos, as you mentioned, the core, is what has driven us all through the years. And lots of bumps in business and in life.
Yeah.
Yet it's that core belief that has ultimately kept us together.
That's amazing. I mean, to create a business that people want to stay at. I was talking to some of the people here. Well, one person here who said she's been here 11 years and she's like the baby. So it tells you that there's something unique about this environment that you guys have created that creates stability, creates loyalty, creates family, which is really nice to see, because a lot of companies you see today, people are in and out. They need to get a new job to make more money. They have to work on being able to pay their bills, which is important, as you said. No margin, no mission. But here you have a mix of both. So I'd love to just jump in to talk about the idea of building a better for you business and the role that these essential oils play in it for you in particular. So for those folks that are not familiar with EO, could you just tell us a little bit about it?
Oh, sure. So EO, we started by doing 4 blends for the Bloomingdale's catalog in 1995. And we had to quickly come up with a name. I sat next to our friend who was a graphic designer at Apple, and we had these very little bottles, very concentrated blends to make, and we had to come up with a name and a concept. So we thought about it, and we, were very specific about type and sort of a very minimalist attitude, and came up with EO for essential oils because everyone who was doing aromatherapy at the time was talking about Cleopatra, or this has been around for 2,500 years, and it's like we wanted it to be relevant and modern. Essential oils are, sort of our touchstone because of agriculture, plants, and the realness and how we're all connected.
Essential oils are like the bar. You hear the saying, no bull in the china shop, or however that goes. We can't not embrace all of the wonderful attributes in a pure essential oil. And so that eliminates a lot of ingredients. Why would you spoil an essential oil with an ingredient that doesn't enhance it more, or at least maintain it? And so through the years, that has just been a consistency. They're more expensive, they're harder to work with, the shelf life isn't as long. There's just a lot of reasons not to do it, yet it is the core.
Yeah, and I know today everybody's all about transparency and what's in it, and we're all reading these labels to know, do we know these products, do we know these ingredients, can we even pronounce them? And I know that way back when, it almost sounds like you were kind of at the forefront of this a little bit, making this available and accessible to people. So I have to imagine, what role did education play in that for you? Because people are, they have to make a choice to buy this. Mm-hmm. And, there's lots of good reasons, but I don't know that people originally knew why.
Flexibility, just being able to figure it out, to being makers, because we couldn't find people to make products the way that we wanted to. So it was, just the beginning of the natural foods business, and, and we took our cues from food and then, into personal care as much as possible.
And it sounds like you've actually been part of the process to create the standards. Mm-hmm. and to create change in that space in very much of a leadership way, like not like you were coming into it late in the game. You were there in the beginning trying to set those standards, which I think is amazing.
Well, I think that the other thing that's unique is neither of us has any sort of background in chemistry, fragrance, you know. So we didn't know the difference. And, you know, and that happens sometimes with the starting point, right?
Right.
Our starting point was we're totally committed to essential oils. So what does that mean? So we didn't even really know anything about synthetic fragrance. But later, when people came to try to sell us synthetic fragrance, and it was so much less expensive, so much easier to work with, but we were like, no, you know? It's just that there's not, I mean, it's like, you know, you can get vinaigrette at McDonald's on a salad, and Alice Waters from Chez Panisse, you know, with her 5 ingredients, and you know, the continuum is disparate, right? It's so, same thing with ingredients and lavender. You know, is it lavender? Is it from the same species? Is it from France? Is it unadulterated? Do you know how it's grown? Do you know the weather? You know, all of those things make it all real.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's a lot of education. As you said, you took those crash courses to be able to learn it, but you also got a huge amount of training on the job. I mean,
we did.
A huge amount of training. You know, you get this idea, and it's an infant of an idea, and then you're like, all of a sudden you're learning all these things. So, you know, as a founder, as somebody that's built these businesses from the beginning, what would you say to another founder that's tuning in today that might be listening and say, okay, you're right, I have an idea, but what do I do next?
We know the path. The path is really what feels right and what resonates, and essential oils has been a big part of our path. Another very important aspect that we followed is community. We made products for our kids. Like, why wouldn't we do our best for our kids? And our, you know, broader family, and then for close friends, and for farther away friends, and then it's just consumers, and then it expands from there to the earth, you know, just taking care. So these were initial guiding principles for us. And so a message to other founders is there are these feelings and these beliefs that really give us the passion to be in the business, to get over those consistent bumps and bad cash flow and all those issues. It's the passion that really drives it. So having some clarity to really what drives essential oils, community, and there's some others. The folks that we work with here, we're just 2 people on the big gear, and it's about all of us. So if we want to create a company that we want to work for, we also want to have a company that they want to work for.
Yeah, those are the same things, I think. And also, I would say, too, that we created products that we wanted to use. So, you know, sometimes in more traditional marketing, and certainly now with AI and everything being so data-driven and so much analysis, you know, that wasn't the case when we started. So, you know, it was sort of a really instinctual decision to say, smell this, do you like this? And then pass it around the office and say, you know, would you use this? And and that's how we started, because we wanted it to be good for, it was the greater good.
Right.
It was for us, it was for our kids, it was for family, it was for community. And because we were part of something bigger in the natural products industry, which was really a better for you industry and commitment, then, you know, that momentum was just really helpful in staying on our path, to have that support, you know.
I find it so interesting because I talk to a lot of founders, and you know, a lot of people are like, well, I have passion for it, and it's the same reason for me. I get up every morning excited to do what I'm going to do. I want to have an impact, I want to make a difference, I want to inspire, I want to create change. And as I'm talking to you and I talk to other founders, people are telling you the same thing. They're inspired to do this, and I feel like it's a very special place to be, To be able to have a business that you like, that you'd want to work with, that you could support other people to be happy to come to provide a livelihood and to make something that's...
Because I think that we all value self-expression. And self-expression, meaning, you know, that you're really living your life in accordance with your values, and that it's not that it's a privilege, although it can be, but it's not taught. You know, it's not our culture.
Right.
The values of our culture. The values of our culture are more like, you know, are you successful? How much money? You know, it's very material. And I think that was just part of our motive because we had to pay the rent, but that wasn't the driver. And so, you know, people who start companies who want to get in, want to get out, and the product is kind of over there because they think it will be successful. I just...
It's a different conversation, I think.
Very.
To expand on that a little bit, and you mentioned this before, about a desire that many people have to want to contribute. Like we want to see and we want to feel that there's a need for us. There's 8 billion plus people in the world, and we want to see that we are needed. It's a core, heartfelt thing. Mm-hmm. What's missing a lot in business, and clarity from other founders, is how can we contribute while being passionate to our own visions? How does community fit in? We're as strong as the weakest link of, say, employees here. We don't, you know, we're in this all together, and that's overused. Yet we make products for us, and we make products for you. Like they are the same. Mm-hmm. And all of our plastic bottles cost 15% more because they're made from recycled content. We don't charge more for that.
Right.
We want to sell our product at local grocery stores for $5.99. We're not charging $12.99, although we could, and many people do. So how do we choose to contribute and engage in with this concept of, I want to be of value, I want to be in service to others, I want others to see me as something that's positive in their lives. And that's up to them to decide. Mm-hmm. It's not up to us to decide.
Because I think so many of the founders that I talk to, you know, they were having a kid, they found a need, or they moved to a new place and they realized it's something that was missing from their new place. And it's all from a place of passion. And to show how somebody could build a business that is impactful, makes money, so it's mission and margin together, and support a local community is huge. I mean, I think it's how, if we have our druthers, how everyone should build it. And I just really would love to there's 2 things I'd love to touch on. One is the community aspect, because, you know, you're pretty big in our community here in the Bay Area. People know EO. You go into the hotels, it's in there. You go into the restaurants, it's in there in the bathrooms. And I mean, we had an event before I was Next Gen Purpose. I was Next Gen Chef, and you guys gave us antibacterial soap for one of our events. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's everywhere. And I just want to know what role the community that we live in, outside of, you know, the EO house here, plays for you guys.
There's a little bit of a selfish response in that.
That's okay.
And that is it provides us, we have an local community. I mean, there's a variety of different types of communities. Local
Yes.
community provides an opportunity to have a face-to-face, to be an actual physical relationship. That's one thing that's really important. And then the second part of it is we want to show what our intention is through our actions. Mm-hmm. And our community is a sounding board for us. Talk is cheap, ideas are abundant. Mm-hmm. Yet how you play the game of life in business, at home, at all avenues is reflected in relationships of local communities, in the feedback. And so it's about the actions. And then it's about engaging enough to see if there's resonance and appreciation.
Yeah, I think there's this idea that we sort of reflect off of each other. You know, we all sort of hold up a mirror. Mm-hmm. And then it's our ability to respond. And, when you're doing something for us that was really wholehearted and values aligned, regardless of the difficulty, and there have been many, 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 that there's sort of a through line because it really is heartfelt.
Mm-hmm.
And that is resonant because it's so human.
So here in Marin, and specifically Mill Valley, I'm going to say, there's a lot of conversation around sustainability. And I don't know, when we did this event in Mill Valley, I remember the rules and regulations around what you were allowed to serve things on and put things in, and which takes me to your packaging and the sustainability aspect of what role it plays in it for you. I know you mentioned that it's recycled plastic, which is obviously great. But there's so many different, issues today that people are talking about, and on a local level, every area has different rules around what you can recycle, what you can compost, what you can do. And I'm just wondering how that played out for you with your product.
Friends of mine wrote a book like 35 years ago called Paper or Plastic.
They were very advanced too.
They were people who were at Esprit and people who started the Rainforest Action Network and, sort of the OG environmentalists. And we've really been, on a parallel path, really looking and watching and learning, and not more proactive than reactive,
Mm-hmm.
and not hopping on the latest trend,
Mm-hmm.
because the problems are real when you make something.
Mm-hmm.
There's always waste,
Mm-hmm.
so then you have to counter that by being zero waste. And glass is an option, or aluminum tubes might be an option, but the making of that packaging and the energy that it takes to make that packaging. So there's all kinds of challenges across the board, in making those decisions. And we really try to study, we're practical, and the idea of innovation really has to be long-term.
So with that in mind, how did you make your decisions for what you're using and how you do it?
Boy, this sustainable thing just makes me want to gag. I believe in the intention and the concept of it. It started with organic,
Mm-hmm.
then it moved into sustainability. Now it's this whole concept of regen.
Mm-hmm.
And where the conversation needs to be is how do you make the right decision? Regen is, all right, well, let's fix something, let's renew it.
Right.
Yet we're not talking about why we got to the place to renew.
Mm-hmm.
It's what Susan said before about giving back. Well, people have a sense of giving back because they're like taking a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So then they feel better because they take a lot. And now that we're giving back, well, the conversation should be, don't take as much.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you make responsible decisions in finance? How do you make responsible decisions in marketing? We're not just trying to create a perception in marketing that we care about the earth. That's really comes out in actions. And so I love the idea about what is responsible. Let's have a conversation about how we make decisions and not kind of kicking this can down the road and not having the bigger conversation of we need to take care of the planet and be sustainable in the first decision that we make about packaging. And so we're making decisions on packaging really for us because I don't think that a large percentage of the population really cares. Look at the number of people that don't recycle.
I'm with you, and I find the whole thing very confusing,
Mm-hmm.
and I also don't know how to make those choices. And let's take it out of this product. Look at food. You go out to
Oh,
dinner.
yes,
Let's
yes.
just look at dinner.
Yeah.
You go out to dinner. Now I have leftovers. Am I better off taking my leftovers and putting them in the takeaway stuff that's made of styrofoam or plastic or whatever, or am I better off leaving them?
No, it's
Now, I ask this because if I bring home anything in styrofoam or whatever, Tim's always like, why, that's such wasteful. I'm like, I tried to bring a container, but they don't want to use my container. So am I better off wasting the food? It's just, and I use that as like a small example, but
No, but
the
it's a big example
big-
because everything really points to waste, and then how each of us participate in what does that mean.
So so let's just, I mean, I know that there's so many interesting topics that we talked about, and I love that because I think it's expansive both for our guests and our listeners as well as myself. Participating in the conversation.
No, it's a great conversation.
So I really love that, and I do want to circle back so that those people that are interested in making more informed choices and building a business where, the community, your employees are part of it, and family, and having that good experience. Can you give people just a couple ideas or concepts that they can think about to make sure that they include to have a similar result?
When we stand in life, as 20 or 30 or 40 years old, we look forward and there's a lot of unknown. What I have started to do is, as I get older, is I'm looking backwards in the future. In other words, on my deathbed, I want to look back, and my legacy is important. There are some things that I want to accomplish in life. Now, in business, you could look at it the same way. How do you want to give back, profits, and all that sort of stuff? You can actually take a place in the future, look back, and then create sort of a ladder to get to. It's about each of the steps. And that's been very helpful for me because it creates a known and end point. I want to get to the roof, so I take each step to go up. You can do the same way in business and in life, that you can set these things, and then you can look back to see if each step is reasonable.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I also think that people don't realize that these steps take time. Right? I mean, how often do we hear that, remember when Oatly got really popular and people thought it happened overnight?
Yes.
That took a lot of years. That didn't happen overnight. So I think that that's something really important for people to remember, that it takes time.
And to value that it takes time.
Yes.
And that it's perfectly okay, as long as you're learning, as long as you feel a sense of purpose and meaning, right? And a sense of belonging to something that's bigger, that's expansive, then it's fine that it takes time. That's how you're spending your day, And so the enjoyment of how you're spending your day, or the challenge of how you're spending your day, or the ability to be present with what is happening now and who you're with now is a key part of that, because that's all we got, really,
Yeah, I mean, I looked back the other day and I was like, wow, so I did this, and all of a sudden, all these things were coming to fruition. And I think that that's pivotal for people to realize, like, all of a sudden, that hard work, it turns into something tangible. And it takes a while. It didn't happen overnight that you created the hand cream that's calming French lavender. Right? But all of a sudden you have these things, and then you expand on them, and then you have the next thing.
Right, and you keep evolving.
And you keep evolving.
And you keep questioning, and you keep learning. So, I mean, lifelong learning is so important because it keeps us flexible and vital and curious,
Well, guys, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I know that our community is going to love this episode because it really talked about all the essential ingredients of everything. The product, building business, everything. It was great to meet you both, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
it
you
was
so
really
much.
great to all be together. So thank you.
Appreciate the conversation.
And thank you to our community that tunes in each week to hear these conversations. And if you do have any questions, what's the best way for anybody to reach out?
You just have to think it, man. You just think it.
We'll get the vibe.
I was kind of thinking, like, is there a website that maybe you want us to add?
We have eoproducts.com.
I think that's a good place to start.
Yes.
It can be. And then, just to take it a little further, Susan at eoproducts.com and Brad B at eoproducts.com.
Awesome. And I'm Justine at nextgenpurpose.com. Thanks so much. Hey, all, I just wanted to thank you guys, whether you're our new loyal listeners, whether you're watching and viewing it from YouTube, but thank you for tuning in today. And I want to thank our guests for giving us an inside look at what it takes to build a brand and to root yourselves in sustainability and transparency. So thank you. And for those that are tuning in today that are new and really don't know how to find our videocast, or are not sure of our outlets, our videocast can be found either on our website at nextgenpurpose.com or on YouTube. We have an Essential Ingredients channel. And for those that want to tune into the podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find the Essential Ingredients podcast with Justine. So thanks again for tuning in. See you next week.